she'll loosen up after we're done with this part. And this is her sister Alice. She just wanted to come up here and see all of you. So Avery is really super healthy, as you can tell, 8-year-old. She's in the 2nd grade. She'll be in 3rd grade next year. And Avery, as he was just saying, is an absolute miracle. We were blessed with Avery, and she was just the center of our lives. And when she was 3 years old, we were expecting Alice. We were going to have her in about a week, and Avery got sick. And it was just a simple little sinus infection. And she was running a pretty high fever, and we were going to be bringing home a newborn. And so her doctor suggested that we go ahead and put her on an antibiotic. And she had never been on an antibiotic at that point, and we thought, what's the harm in it? We take antibiotics all the time. And so we chose to do that so that when her sister came home from the hospital, she would be well. And about 3 weeks later, Avery got sicker. And we were out of town at a wedding, and she was staying with family. And they just said that she was just not acting herself. She was having some tummy aches. And so we came home from the wedding early, and we noticed some symptoms. And we called her doctor and told her doctor what was going on, and they told us to come in very early the next morning because they were suspecting that Avery had developed C. difficile infection from the antibiotic. And simple, quick science lesson. Most of you, or if you're nursing students or science majors, you may already know this, but C. difficile is a bacteria that lives in your gut. We all have it, but it's an opportunistic bacteria, and when it has the opportunity, it can take over your gut, and it takes over all of the good bacteria that you have that keeps all of the bad bacteria at bay. And that's what happened with Avery. And it seemed like a small problem. Avery was healthy, she had never been sick, and then it turned into a bigger problem. For whatever reason, her C. difficile, her body just could not fight it. And we started out with just probiotics, and then we went to some different drugs, and her body just could not keep it away. And so she was hospitalized 3 times for, she was having 20 to 25 bouts of bloody stools a day. She was dehydrated. They finally put her on a really strong medicine that caused a lot of other problems. She started experiencing night terrors. She had reactive arthritis in her hands and her knees. We had to pull her out of school, out of church, out of all activities. She couldn't be around other children. And she was 3 years old, and she was fighting though. I tell you, on some days you couldn't even tell that she was sick. She was just so positive, and some of us would have just kind of given up, but she kept fighting. And we reached the end of the line with medication. There was no other medication that could treat Avery. And we were looking at no other options. It was a really scary aspect of C. difficile is that you're treating it with an antibiotic, but antibiotics is sometimes how you originally get C. difficile. And so we began looking at other options because the medicine wasn't working. They put her on a couple of experimental drugs, and those did not work either. And I started calling everyone I knew. Her doctor, her pediatric gastroenterologist, started calling everyone that he knew from medical school and sharing Avery's case. And there's something that's really newer in the medical field, and when Avery was going through it, it was really new, but it's called a fecal microbiota transplant. And it's not something fun to talk about, but it's where they take healthy fecal matter and put it into the gut of a person with C. difficile, or with recurrent C. difficile. At the time that Avery needed the transplant, it was not approved at any hospital in Georgia. So we were looking at going to the Children's Hospital in Rochester, and even then it was still experimental. I think at the time they had done maybe 21 across the country in pediatric cases, and Christy Johnson, who you guys might know, who works for Georgia College, she worked at the time at the hospital here in Milledgeville, and I called her and she said, listen, I know someone who might be able to help you. So I called that person. And that person said, hey, I know someone that might be able to help you. And through about, 100 phone calls, I finally got in touch with the infectious disease doctor at Emory, who then referred us to a pediatric gastroenterologist in Atlanta who was working on getting approval. And prayers really worked because when we finally got in touch with him, his nurse said, can you guys come in next Tuesday? And we said, yes, we can be there. If you don't know anything about getting an appointment with a specialist, it usually takes about 6 weeks. He said, yeah, we can be there next Tuesday. And he said, when we got there on Tuesday, he said, I should have my approval by Thursday. Can you guys come back Thursday and have the transplant? I'd like for Avery to be our first one. And we said, of course, we can be there. And she ended up being the first fecal transplant in a pediatric case in the Southeast. And since she completed hers, they've done about 32 more the last time I checked. And all but 2 of them have been successful. And Avery's was a success. We left the hospital. She was on medicine 4 to 8 times a day, depending on which therapy we were using. We were having to wake her up in the middle of the night to take medicine, and we came home with nothing, no medicine at all. And it's been really interesting. I'm a high school teacher, and I've had students go to nursing school, and they come back to see me, and they're like, we studied Avery's case in one of our clinicals, because the fecal transplant is a much healthier, much safer alternative to what we consider modern day medicine, although the fecal transplant is much more modern. So she's great. She had the fecal transplant. It will be 5 years or 4 years this July. July 3rd will be 4 years. We celebrate her fecal transplant birthday every July, and it's something, we call it her anniversary. And thank you guys for what you do, because without your support, things like that would not even be a possibility. So we thank you. Do you want to say thank you? Thank you.